Welcome to English Easy Hub. Join us as we ignite the flames of your English learning journey together.
Please subscribe to watch and embark on your English learning journey. Don't miss out on the exciting content. In this dialogue, Simon seeks advice from his teacher on how to improve his English pronunciation and intonation, feeling stuck in his current progress. Simon expresses his concerns about sounding robotic, misplacing stress, and the influence of his native language on his accent. His teacher provides valuable insights into critical areas like stress, rhythm, connected speech, and the importance of intonation in English. The conversation delves into practical techniques, including shadowing and listening exercises, while also addressing broader concerns such as speed, clarity, and the role of nonverbal communication in enhancing spoken English.
Hi, teacher. Lately, I've been really focused on improving my English pronunciation and intonation, but I feel like I'm hitting a wall. I want to sound more natural when I speak. What do you think is the most important area for me to work on?
It's great that you're focusing on this. Pronunciation and intonation are key to sounding natural, but I'd say the first thing to work on is stress and rhythm. English is a stress-timed language, meaning that certain syllables in a sentence are emphasized while others are compressed. Mastering that will make you sound more fluent and less robotic. It's less about perfect pronunciation and more about the flow of your speech.
That makes sense. So, when I practice, should I focus on whole sentences rather than individual words? I feel like I sometimes get caught up in trying to pronounce every word perfectly.
Exactly. While it's important to know how to pronounce individual words, real communication happens in phrases and sentences. When you focus too much on individual words, you risk making your speech sound stilted. Instead, practice sentences as a whole, paying attention to the connected speech, the way words blend into each other in natural conversation.
I've heard of connected speech before, like when sounds seem to disappear between words. Is there a trick to getting better at that?
A big part of connected speech is about listening. Native speakers don't pronounce every single word clearly. Instead, they link sounds. For example, "What are you doing?" might sound like "What ya doing?" This happens with contractions and reductions too. The trick is to listen closely to how native speakers blend words and practice mimicking that. You could even slow down audio at first, then gradually speed up as you get comfortable.
I've been trying shadowing recently. Do you think that could help me with connected speech and intonation?
Shadowing is an excellent technique for this. It forces you to listen and speak simultaneously, which helps you pick up on those natural patterns. But the key is to start slow. Don't worry if you can't keep up right away. Focus first on matching the intonation, stress, and rhythm. Over time, you'll find yourself speaking more smoothly without thinking about it.
Sometimes, when I shadow or try to imitate native speakers, I feel like I'm exaggerating. Is that okay, or am I overdoing it?
It might feel exaggerated to you, but in reality, it's probably closer to natural English speech than you think. English intonation can be much more dynamic than some other languages, especially when expressing emotion or emphasis. So don't worry about exaggeration. It's actually a great way to train your ears and your voice to adapt to the musicality of the language. Eventually, what feels exaggerated now will become your new normal.
I've noticed that when I speak in my native language, my voice is more monotone compared to English. Is that something I need to change when I speak English?
Yes, English tends to have a wider pitch range than many other languages. When we express ideas or emotions in English, we use pitch to show emphasis, contrast, or to signal the end of a thought. If you stick to a monotone, you risk sounding flat or uninterested, even if your content is great. So, Practice varying your pitch. Go higher when you're asking questions or expressing surprise, and lower when you're making statements or emphasizing something important.
It's tricky to balance that. I also find that I sometimes misplace stress in sentences. For example, I might stress the wrong word, which can confuse the meaning. How do I avoid that?
Stress placement is crucial because it changes the meaning of a sentence. In English, we typically stress content words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, while function words like articles or prepositions are usually unstressed. But beyond that, the meaning can change based on which word is stressed. For example, in the sentence, "I didn't say he stole the money," the emphasis on he suggests that someone else stole the money. If you emphasize money, it suggests that something else was stolen instead. So, practice shifting the stress in sentences to see how the meaning changes.
That's really interesting. So, should I think more about the meaning I want to convey before I speak?
Exactly. Being mindful of what you want to emphasize can make a huge difference in how your speech is understood. A good exercise is to take a simple sentence and practice stressing different words each time. It will help you become more conscious of where to put the stress, and over time, it'll become more automatic.
Sometimes when I listen to native speakers, I feel like they speak really fast. Is it more important to focus on speed or on clarity?
Clarity is always more important than speed. Don't rush to match native speakers' pace just yet. If you focus on clarity and the natural rhythm of the language, your speed will naturally increase over time. A lot of native speakers sound fast because they're using those connected speech patterns we talked about. Once you get comfortable with linking words together and reducing unnecessary pauses, your speech will become faster without you forcing it.
I see. So, I shouldn't worry too much about speaking quickly for now?
Correct. Speed comes with practice and familiarity. Right now, focus on accuracy and flow. The more you practice shadowing, listening, and speaking naturally, the more your speed will improve without sacrificing clarity.
I've noticed that even when I try to sound natural, sometimes my accent gets in the way. Should I aim to completely get rid of my accent, or is it okay to keep some of it?
That's a really important question. You don't need to completely lose your accent to be understood or to speak well. In fact, accents are a part of your identity. The goal should be intelligibility, making sure others can understand you clearly. If your accent doesn't interfere with communication, it's perfectly fine to keep it. However, if certain sounds or patterns make it harder for others to understand you, those are the areas you can work on.
That's reassuring. I'll focus on making myself clear rather than trying to sound like a native speaker. But do you think it's possible to sound like a native speaker if I wanted to?
It's definitely possible, especially with enough exposure and practice. Some people manage to sound almost indistinguishable from native speakers, but it often takes years of immersion. However, keep in mind that sounding like a native speaker isn't the only goal. Clear communication and confidence in your speech are far more important. If you focus on those, the rest will come naturally.
I guess that takes the pressure off a bit. I've also been wondering about nonverbal aspects, like facial expressions. Do they really affect how I speak?
Yes, nonverbal communication plays a bigger role than many people realize. When you use facial expressions and gestures, it actually affects your voice. It changes your tone, your pitch, and even the rhythm of your speech. It can help you sound more natural and dynamic. So, don't be afraid to use your body when you speak, especially if it helps convey emotion or emphasis. It'll make your intonation more lively and engaging.
That's really helpful. I guess I have one last question. How long do you think it'll take before I really feel comfortable with my pronunciation and intonation?
It depends on how consistently you practice, but progress can be noticeable within a few months if you focus on the right techniques. Don't rush the process. Improvement in pronunciation and intonation happens gradually, but with regular shadowing, listening, and speaking, you'll likely start seeing improvements sooner than you think. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Thanks, teacher. I feel a lot more confident now that I know what to focus on. I'll definitely start practicing more consciously with everything you've mentioned.
You're very welcome, Simon. Stay consistent, and don't hesitate to ask more questions as you continue improving. You're on the right path. Keep up the good work.
By the end of the conversation, Simon gains a clearer understanding of how to approach his language learning journey. The teacher emphasizes that pronunciation and intonation improvements come from focusing on the natural flow of speech, mastering stress placement, and practicing connected speech. Rather than striving for perfection or a native-like accent, the goal is to be intelligible and confident. Techniques like shadowing, paying attention to rhythm and pitch, and integrating nonverbal communication are highlighted as effective ways to develop a more natural and dynamic speaking style. Ultimately, the key takeaway is that consistent practice, patience, and listening are the cornerstones to achieving fluency and a more natural English sound.
Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share to keep the English learning journey alive.